We are live. Good afternoon, everybody. Kelly DeLucia and George Plattencoulin with me, as always. Of course, he's literally on this other side of this wall right here. You can
Live. We should do this together in the same room one time.
you know.
It's COVID.
I like to hide behind the screen, George. All right, I'm just trying to give a couple people some time to filter in here and get us going. Try and share our page with a couple people too. And we'll get started in just a minute.
I am doing just that as well.
Oh, 2 steps ahead of me. And let's see. Oh man, I think I shared it to my story about 5 times. So for the 4 followers that I have, you're welcome.
Cool. I just got a notification that you have shared.
Oh, look at that. You can teach an old dog new tricks. All right, let's we have a quick update for you guys this week, and I'm going to highlight some of the things we've been talking about on the team with you all. We had a really good discussion this morning with the whole team in terms of what's happening out there on the market. And I'll get to flip on over to our presentation side. As always, you guys know that we like to go over the numbers first. So I'll make it a little bit bigger. So welcome everyone, thanks for joining. And if you have any questions for us this week, it's October 7th. Please shout them out online and we will try to monitor all those comments as well, maybe with a little help with our friends. And all right, October 7th, weekly trends. So again, my broken record spiel of what's happening with today's inventory. We are continuing to see more homes go under contract than are listed, which is great news if you are a seller. And it is not as great news if you are a buyer and you find yourself in a lot of multiple offer situations. We understand that those can be very frustrating for everybody. So we're going to actually talk a little bit today about some multiple offer stuff. We've covered it in the past, but we're getting some new information and some new frustration from agents and buyers that are out there. So we figured, why not give everyone a fresh update? And Layla, I see that you actually asked, what are we talking about today? There you go. That's what we're going to cover. And then a little bit of national news. So new listings up a little bit, pending sales still going strong, still about a 24% difference between that. So you guys, it's really a great time if you've been thinking about selling. Awesome time. But what does that mean for the buyers? Is this a bad time for buyers? I don't think so. I don't think that it's a bad time for buyers. And I kind of want George to jump in and talk a little bit about affordability, which we've been hitting every week. You know, why, even though we have low inventory and there are a lot of multiple offers, why is now still a good time for buyers?
Well, and that's where you look at a different scenario. It's because we shouldn't be focusing just on the price alone. You're focusing on your availability for interest rates. I mean, sitting in the mid to high threes. I mean, sorry, twos. Yeah, I haven't gotten the threes yet. Good financing options that are out there, so good terms. That's really the biggest factor. There's availability for homes. It's not like they aren't homes. The homes come and go pretty fast. And yes, maybe you pay a couple of thousand more than what you would typically in a standard market. But look back at what you could 6 months ago, a year ago. The same home, you probably end up paying. Your monthly payments would be far more in probably a little bit more expensive home just because of the interest rate. So it is a good time just because of that factor of loan. Your 2% interest rate or slightly higher, but it's below 3% typically, you are absolutely winning at that point, because it's as good as, house money at that point.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to try and share real quick too a little bit about what George is talking about. So you've seen this slide a couple weeks in a row now. Really want to emphasize this point with everyone is, during our conversation today with the team and the frustrations that they're trying to bring to light with the buyers that are out there shopping, is that they're paying top dollar for houses right now, and they feel that they have to move super quickly. Things are going under contract. They're competing. They're paying full price, maybe more. And maybe repair negotiations are getting a little tougher now too. It's very much seller favored right now. But if we bring it back to where George was talking about, take a look at this slide and look at what's on the right side of it. If you were to pay $300,000 for a property, but at a higher interest rate, you would still be paying, or $300,000, which is $50,000 less than maybe what something's priced at now. Your out-of-pocket expense is over $100 more a month. Mm-hmm. You're spending more money monthly for the same house at a lower price because of the interest rate. So, which is why we keep harping on everybody that even though prices might have ticked up, this is still an excellent time to purchase a house because of the affordability factor.
And the key thing is, it's not just the fact that if people are looking at, just look at the numbers more so than anything. You can see where your market really was a year ago. It was that sitting right about 4%. So, and if anything changes in the upcoming months, which typically in an election year, you do see some changes right after, and interest rates are just not going to sit where they are right now. No, it's just not financially doable for every bank out there. Eventually, they're going to realize, okay, we've got enough people out there, enough refinances. We're going to start ticking up the interest rate. So 2.5 turns into 2.7, turns into 3 to 3.2, and it just continues to increase from there. Mm-hmm. It's still a good time, and it's still a good interest rate depending on where you end up, but it will continue to rise. So, of course, right now is a phenomenal time to buy. So in a year from now, more than likely, we'll start seeing that 4.5 interest rate potentially, and then we'll have to decide at that point, okay, what can you afford? And more than likely, our values are going to continue to uptick over the next 6 months. Just like if you look at similar homes that were bought 6 months ago, values have continued to increase, and in less than a year.
Yep.
And that's the key factor.
Yep. In less than a year, we've seen a big swing in pricing, but we've seen a big swing in interest rates going down so much so that it still makes those properties affordable. Right. So now is the time to buy, like George said, versus waiting another 6 months where your interest rate might be a little higher and home prices have stayed the same or maybe gained even more. So as you saw on our last slide, a lower interest rate has a lot bigger impact than a $50,000 price difference. It can put you in a totally different buying bracket. So let's move on to multiple offers. So big topic for today. We've been hearing agents and buyers voice concerns, and even sellers, that they don't want to go into multiple offers. Multiple offers on a property can get stressful. Multiple offers on a property doesn't necessarily mean you're going to net more as a seller just because you have more offers on the table. It could cause some buyers to back out and not want to be in a competitive situation. You could get buyers that might commit to a property and put in a great offer because they're worried about, the scarcity of this home. And if I don't put in a great offer now, I'm going to lose it. But then 5 days later, be like, ooh, I acted too soon. Did I really want that house, or was I just feeling the pressure to get into it? So we're hearing all sorts of concerns all around. So I wanted to bring that to the forefront and just when you are counseling buyers, George, and helping educate on, if you really do like a property and you know there might be other offers on the table, or you think maybe you're the first one, but in another 30 minutes, another one could be coming through the email, what do you suggest to buyers to help them either avoid multiple offers altogether or win those situations?
Well, a lot of times we look at, coming in strong, coming in with a good price, uh, putting aside value at this point. Of course, if the home is way overpriced, then it doesn't make sense to
Mm-hmm.
uh, offer asking, because then you just put yourself in a bad position 3 weeks down the road when the appraisal comes in short.
Right, right.
And so that's a challenge. So putting aside that, but you always want to come in uh, at asking fairly close to it, depending on the time frame. If it's something within a couple of days on market, it's unlikely that a seller is willing to reduce their price even slightly because of the fact that there's competition. So the big thing is that coming in at the right price, and then your terms. If you are offering a higher deposit, depending on what kind of financing that you're doing, so the higher the number, we always say 1 to 3% of what your offer is. Sometimes people have gone over. We've had people put 25,000 down.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
all going towards that down payment, and that kind of made the difference as to who is going to get picked. Uh, Concessions; those are always the biggest thing. Whether you have a home to sell, whether you are you're asking for closing costs, asking for a home warranty, all those little things will kind of eat away at the seller's final number. So
Right.
then those can be factors as well. So you always want to have good terms. If you're buying a house, there's always a cost. You just have to understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Know how you apart from your down payment, there's always some closing costs. Depending on your purchase price, it's going to be somewhere in that 5,000 to 8,000 range.
Yep.
Maybe more, maybe a little bit less, depending on the price. But if you understand that you're going to buy it, then you understand those are fees that you have to pay as part of the process.
Yes.
And then of course, it's sometimes the timeline makes a big difference too. Most sellers understand at this point, for them to be able to sell their home, they're probably going to get offers at somewhere between the 30 to 40 day mark, pushing more towards the 40 days these days because of how long it's taking financing. But if you have the ability to close in that time frame, that makes a big difference. Or having a conversation with the seller as listing agent saying, okay, well, we need to be in the house for 2 months. And if that's doable for you, then all the more opportunity for your offer to be picked.
Yep.
And then there's other things that we always do as well to try and just mitigate going way over the top for pricing and blowing out your budget if it is that. So, and that's one of the things that we do. We don't ever look at homes. If your budget's 300,000, we don't look at $400,000 homes for you. So no, we're not getting that for that price. Unless we've kind of done some research. It's been sitting on the market for 200 days, and they're still at that price. So there's things like that. But we try and make sure we educate the buyers on the current market, the current condition. And it's very easy to see when we walk into a home, day one, day two of it being on the market. There's 15 cards sitting on the table. There's people waiting behind you. There's people waiting in front of you.
Right.
You know that there's competition.
Right.
It's not hard to see that.
Yep.
If they want to be in that area, they want to be in a specific school zone. That there's going to be a looking, and that's how it is. That's how it's been the past 6 months. For people looking, every single home typically has competition. If it's sitting on the market for a week to 2 weeks, there's something wrong. Whether it's a house or it's overpriced, all the more reason. But a little less of the overpriced because most agents price them correctly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that holds true in any market, price and condition. If a home is priced well and it shows well, it's in good condition, it's going to sell, or it's priced according to the condition. It could be in horrific shape, but the price should reflect that it's in horrific shape. Exactly. So, those are all good points that, buyers it is frustrating out there because of the lack of inventory, but there are things, on the listing side that we look at as well, often when reviewing offers that helps them stand apart. Did you go into it? Did you take a look at the comps? Did you submit an offer that was in line with pricing? George mentioned that most things are selling close to list price, and that's true. Things are selling about 98.5% of the listed price, and in some markets around town, some pockets over 100%, depending on the neighborhood. So did you look at the comps? Did you check to see that what you're offering is in line with what's going to be accepted? Are they recent? If you pulled something, if you were looking at things from March, they're not going to be relevant anymore. Our pricing has changed substantially in the last 6 months. So you have to make sure you're looking at what's currently happening. Did you put your best foot forward when it comes to, George mentioned the binder? Can you shorten your inspection timelines? Can you remove any closing costs? Like George said, do you have the ability to purchase the home without seller assistance? And we talked today, writing letters has become popular. Letters to the sellers about why you like your house. Maybe you want to do a video to the seller about why you love their house. Sellers these days are using a variety of methods to check out who is trying to buy their home. It is not uncommon for somebody to do a Google search of the buyer's name, which is on the contract, or maybe check out their Facebook profile. So just know that people, and not in any sort of discriminatory fashion, but they want to know, I want someone to love my home just the way that I do. And whether that has anything to do with the final purchase price or not, sometimes that's something that they like to do. It's an emotional process for buyers and for sellers. So these are all things that go into the offer. As is, something that was brought up today, can you write an as is offer? You, of course, have your 10-day contingency time frame to do your inspections, or maybe you've made it a little shorter to make yourself stand out a bit. But can you forego repairs? Is this a home in a condition that you think that you're able to take on those, and you're willing to tell the seller, hey, I'll take your house just the way it is? So those are all things that can help you stand out. Making sure that your agent is communicating with the other agent on the other side of the transaction. That's a big thing. Making sure that the agents are discussing that there's an offer coming through, and introducing you as the buyer, and giving the big picture as to why they're putting in the offer, and any other nuances that might be happening, instead of just emailing it over without any communication whatsoever. So those are some tips, that are really important right now, especially. And we've been hearing frustrations from not just agents on our team, but all across North Florida. So just wanted to have an open dialogue on that, because George and I come at this from two very different perspectives. But our goal as transaction brokers is to make it a win-win for everybody involved.
Right. And there's so many things that, buyers and sellers can do between, listing and presenting the home. And from the buyer's perspective, doing the same thing with not just their offer, but with their financing, with their terms. That's how their presentation is going to make a big difference as to, which seller picks, not just getting pre-approved, but moving forward on your, a little bit further into underwriting with your financing. So that always helps a little bit as well. Cuts out a couple of weeks worth of time. And as well makes you look like a much stronger buyer in comparison to somebody else who have just got their initial approval like yesterday. So those are small things, but those are always good things to do that makes your offer stand out. And yes, communication is definitely the key. You have a good relationship with the agent on the opposite side. That automatically translates over to know, hey, this is probably going to be a much easier transaction than working with the person that was, bugging you for showing instructions, or, trying to get in to the appointment, etc.
Just being adversarial in general. It's much nicer when everybody is coming to the table with open communication is friendly.
Yes.
So the last thing that I wanted to quickly touch on, and I'm sure we'll get into this more next week and the week after as we lead up to the first week of November. A lot of questions lately about the election. You know, what's going to happen? It's an election year. We're going into the holidays. How is that going to change the market? Is it still a good time to put my house on the market? Is it still a good time to buy? I pulled a quick article, was reading through a quick article today, and the actual title of the article was Coronavirus Changed People's Perspective on, you know, adjusting real estate plans way more than what is currently being surveyed due to the election. So buyers and sellers shifted much heavily with coronavirus than only 22% of buyers and sellers are thinking that they might do something differently, whether that's buy or sell. You know, maybe they're going to sell because of the election or not going to sell. You know, we don't know necessarily which way that 22% is swinging. But it's interesting, and it is something that we will keep talking about, because elections can change a lot of things from, where the markets are, how the markets respond, you know, what the Fed does, what's happening with the interest rate, overall confidence in the economy and the country. So those things all impact the real estate market, and that's stuff that we watch every year. But the good news is, and we've brought it up before, that even in any election year, as far back as studies have been done on the real estate market and correlation to election, regardless of the outcome of the election, that dip in activity, if there is dip in activity, is very short-lived. And then everything seems to rebound from there, regardless of who wins. Republican, Democrat, incumbent, not. And so those are all positive things. We've had a serious lack of inventory in North Florida for over a year now, going on 2 years. That's not going to change. Hopefully the economic impact of coronavirus, of an election year, of any changing policies will not have as much impact on our community here as it might in other areas.
Mm-hmm. And that's a big thing. It's a big reminder for a lot of people, because every single housing market is different.
Mm-hmm.
We see it across the country, across the world. The market's going to be a different scenario. Big cities, small cities. Obviously, Jacksonville's been peaking to the top because it's a small town, because it's in Florida, and there's so many differences that you have to consider. So people that are watching that aren't here in North Florida, your market's going to be a little bit different. And just want to pay attention to it. But it's the same thing no matter what. Like, once the election's done, we'll see a change, and then it'll settle back down.
That's right. Always has. This will be the third election cycle that George and I have been through. Mm-hmm. So more importantly, the holidays are coming up. And I think this year, more than any other year, there will be people out there buying and selling, where we always get that question, like, is it going to slow down because of the holidays? Sure, it will, to some degree, because people have other things that they have to do. They want to celebrate with their families or spend time, they have other engagements, but maybe not as many this year. Like, maybe there won't be as many work parties or, family get-togethers, friend get-togethers, because people are more concerned about, coronavirus and what's happening. So we don't know. We'll have to see how that plays in. But I think that we're going to continue having an extremely busy season right through the end of the year.
Agree. And the start of the year.
And the start of the year. And 2021. But that is really all for us this week. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We will be here next week. Same time, same place. Wednesdays at 3:30. If anybody has any questions, feel free to keep typing them in on the comments. We actively monitor those even after we go off live, and we'd be happy to get back to you at any point in time with specific questions that you may have. But for this week, I'm Kelly, and this is George, and we're both saying goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. There you go.